Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to today's live stream. Um, I wanted to do something a little bit different today, where it's just sort of a little bit of a chill type of live stream, no tutorial, anything like that. So if you've got, warm drink, coffee, something like that, pull up a chair, bring your drink, and come have a chat with me today. I want to do a little bit of some reflecting over this past school year. And I know for a lot of educators, this school year has been a very difficult one. And I think one of the things that I have seen, circulating social media, YouTube, all those different things, all the different connections that I have with different teachers, the theme of the year has kind of been, it's been a tough year. I think there's no disputing that fact for sure. And it's funny. I was having a conversation with a colleague about 2 weeks ago. And this colleague of mine teaches in a regular brick and mortar school. And of course, I teach in an online setting. And so our conversation, as we were talking about the school year, was all about some of the different challenges that we've been facing. And my colleague was a little bit surprised that it was a tough year for me as well, because with me being an online teacher and teaching online for as long as I have been, that she figured that, oh, well, that should be easy. Nothing really changed for you this year, right? And the truth is that things did change for me this year. Things did get tough for online teachers, even those of us that were doing it for years previous to the whole pandemic situation, right? And so today I want to take a little bit of time just to reflect on my year, some of the enjoyable moments that I was able to have, things that I will take away as major memories of this year, strategies that worked for me in my online classes, some of the things that I did for myself to sort of keep my sanity, as well as some plans that I've already been thinking through for next year. And so that's what the focus of today's live stream is going to be. So if you're just joining, we're going to be having a little chat about some of these things. Feel free to grab your coffee and relax and have a chat with me here. Let's see. I see we have some people joining chat already. That's awesome. Welcome, Vincent. Nice to see you. As we're already asking for advice and things like that, absolutely. I'll come back to some of those questions at the end of the stream for sure, okay? If you have specific questions about teaching online, I'd be happy to answer some of those, okay? But for those of you that have not met me before, I want to introduce myself. My name is Danielle Rochford. And I am an online teacher for grade 7 and grade 8. This year, I have been teaching science classes, language arts classes, as well as health and PE. In previous years, I've done the whole gamut. I have been teaching online for over 10 years now. I know that's sort of a surprising thing to some people. This year it really came out where it was, people thought that online teaching was a brand new thing, and that it was totally being reinvented this year with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff. And but truthfully, absolutely, I have been teaching online, doing online Zoom-like type sessions with students for over 10 years. And so this is a form of schooling that has been around for a while now, and it's actually a really positive thing for me to know that so many people are learning about it. Have I mean, it hasn't maybe been the best experience for everybody, sort of being thrown into it. Um, but bringing attention to the fact that, yeah, this is actually an alternate form of being educated. And so that's a positive part that has come about because of, the whole pandemic situation that we've been facing. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about, reflecting on my school year. And so I want to start off, I want to talk a little bit first about some of the enjoyable moments that I experienced, because even though it was a tough year, there absolutely were some enjoyable moments through the year. This year, I had larger class sizes than what I've ever had. So to sort of put that into perspective, this year our junior high enrollment, so the grade 7s and grade 8s that I was working with, doubled. I was working with twice the amount of students as what I had been in the previous year. And so there was a big increase in the number of students that I was working with, which had its benefits, but also drawbacks. And some of the benefits that it did bring with it was the opportunity for students to be able to interact with, just that many more people in their classes. And so when we would have things like discussions, they ended up being much more robust just because of the fact that we had more students than we had in the past. And so that was something that was really neat. The discussions that I was able to have with my students. I remember I had a particular group of grade 7s that just absolutely loved the opportunity to try and debate different topics. And so that was a huge thing, particularly it really came about in our health classes, actually, where we would have different topics that would be talking about, and the students would have particularly strong feelings one way or another about something. And it came to the point where by the end of the year, we would log into class and it was, are we having a debate? Are we going to debate, Miss R? And so that was something that was really, really neat. Those discussions that we were able to have and the sharing of thoughts and ideas. One of the other things that I would sort of pinpoint as an enjoyable moment would be some of the fun activities that we would do in the junior high. We really did try and create a community with the students. And one of those things that we did in order to try and create community was to do different games with them, to do competitions and things like that. And so those junior high wide competitions that we had, they went over really well with the students this year. We would do things where it was, grade 7 versus grade 8, and they would have to do different activities in class, or different things that we would identify as being point worthy, and so they would be able to earn points for their grade. And then at the end of, say the week or the day, whatever we would end up doing the competition for, we would tally up all of the points that the students were able to earn. And it was a really neat thing to sort of see that energy that they would put into things for those different competitions. And so those are some of the enjoyable moments that I really identified with this past school year. So those discussions, debates, interactions with the students, as well as the fun competitions that we were able to have. As I take a look back and I think about, specific classes that were really memorable for me, there is one class actually one subject in particular that really stands out for me. Over the past couple of years, I've been working on really developing my online language arts program. And one of the things that I know that a lot of students struggle with, particularly in the junior high, is sort of trudging through all that, learning grammar and practicing, how to write properly, and just sort of catching on and catching a fire for the writing process, reading, and all of those things that go along with language arts. And so one of the things that I have been doing is I've worked over the past few years to develop my grade 8 language arts class to be a year-long project that gives the students a real-world application for their reading and writing and grammar skills. And so this year was actually a fantastic year. It was this is the second year that I've officially done this one with the students. And it was so successful, and so absolutely a memorable class for me. So to tell you a little bit about what it is that I'm doing, I have the students, their project for the year is that they become authors for the year. And so what I do with them is we go through the whole process of writing a story / novel, okay? And at the end of the year, I publish, usually it's an anthology for the students. This is actually the book that I published for my students a couple of years ago. It's an anthology of all of their stories here, and it's an official published one. They all got their own copy of it, and I have to tell you, they were so excited to know that something that they wrote was published. And they had an actual copy of their work. It was something that they were able to contribute. And so this year we did it again, and this has been my most successful year so far with this program, because what I've had to do is my kids wrote so much that it's not just one anthology that I'm publishing this year. So we have an anthology that we're doing of some of the shorter stories that were written, but I had 3 students in particular that really took on this challenge. They loved writing, and they just really put their whole effort into it. And so 3 students wrote full-size novels for me this year. And I was so excited for that. It was such an amazing thing to see. And so currently what we're doing is we're going through the process of doing some final edits and revisions on it. And each of those students that wrote a full-size novel, they are having their own books published, which, needless to say, they were super excited about when I told them that we were going to be able to do that for them. So for me, my language arts class this year is probably my most memorable class, simply because of how successful I felt. Not only my approach to things ended up being this year, but the way that the students responded to it and what they were able to produce through it as well. Taking a look at specific strategies that I used this year, what worked, what didn't. I would probably narrow it down to a few things. Okay, so number one, I started to use Nearpod more frequently in my online lessons this year than what I have in previous years. I've used Nearpod in previous years, but I wasn't using them for every single lesson. This year, I'd say I didn't use them for every single lesson as well, but I certainly used them for many more. And what I did find was that when I was able to use those Nearpod lessons, especially using the interactive portions of Nearpod, so things that I could include in there for the students to participate in, so they weren't listening to me all the time, right? It wasn't just a lecture and things like that. They were actively engaged in the lesson. That was something that worked really, really well for this school year. So integrating Nearpod into a lot of those online lessons, that is something that worked really, really well. Something else that I did this year, I mentioned it at the front end of the video here, was that enrollment in my junior high, so for my grade 7s and 8s, dramatically increased this year. And so one of the things that I was finding was that it was a little bit more difficult to, number one, have the time to take attendance properly. It was taking too much time, and I didn't like that. And number two, sort of keeping track and making sure that students were staying in the class right through until the end. Some of you, if you've taught online, might have experienced something similar. Once you get going into the class, students log in for attendance, and then, either they walk away from the computer, have their camera off, or something, or, just, drop out of class and you never see them again type of thing, right? And so at the beginning of the school year, I was starting to see some of those types of behaviors happen. And so I wanted to find a strategy that I could use that would make sure we could sort of limit those types of choices that were being made. Now, what I did to help facilitate, the reduction of those behaviors was I did I just called it a check-in form, and so I used this as attendance. So the students were doing their own attendance, and it wasn't taking me forever to just, okay, yep, you're here, yep. So I didn't have to do that. It was the students were doing their own attendance. But I was also using it at the end of class as an opportunity for the students to share with me how they felt about the lesson, what they took away from the lesson, what they learned, those types of things. So it was a Google form that I used, and I had it set up so the students could choose what class they were checking in for. They could choose their name from the drop-down menu that I had, and then I had a set number of questions for them so that they could give me some feedback. I had them rate themselves how they felt that they participated in class. I had about 6 different questions where they rated themselves 1 to 5. So things like, I kept my camera on throughout all of class, or I participated in the discussion today, or some of the other things, I was not a distraction to others in class. Okay, so those are some of the things that I had them evaluate themselves on. And then I asked some questions where it was an answer where they would type in, things like, what is your major takeaway from today? Or maybe sometimes I would ask them something specific about the lesson that I want to make sure that they understood. And so I'd have those questions for them, and then they would submit it. And once they had it submitted, I had it linked to a Google Sheet, which I used a formula to automatically set up like my attendance. So check marks would automatically show up when a student checked in on the form. So all I would have to do is go into my Google Sheet and take a look and say, okay, yep, those are all the ones that were there. Such and such was missing. And then I could check in with those that were missing from class from there. Okay. And I did it at the end of class to make sure that students were sticking around till the end, right? And so that was something that helped reduce the the choices that some students were making were like to sort of disappear, right? Once attendance was done. So this is actually something that I'm going to be doing a tutorial video on. I'm going to be sharing how I set up the Google form, as well as the connection to the Google Sheet, and how I automated all of that. And so that's coming up, I think, in about 2 weeks. I have a video that's going to be posted here to my channel, all about how I did that. If that is something that you're interested in, and you want to see some of my other strategies that I have tutorials coming up for, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. So you click on subscribe and click on the that bell to get notifications, so that whenever I do upload a new video, or when I go live, you'll get notifications for that. Okay. So those are some of the strategies that I used that that I found worked well for me. So integrating Nearpod more fully into all of my lessons there, as well as including the check-in. Okay. Now, this brings us to some of the challenging moments that I experienced this year. You know, I really do, and the type of person that I am, is I really like to focus on the positives, right? So I'm a very positive person. I look for the positive in everything, but that doesn't mean that there aren't issues, right? This year, there were some challenging moments, and like I mentioned earlier, this was probably one of the most difficult school years that I have ever experienced. I've been teaching for over 20 years, over 10 of them being online. But even with all of that experience behind me, it was still a very challenging year. You know, we obviously had the pandemic that everybody was dealing with. And even though for my school, because we are already online, we didn't have any of the back and forth going on, you know, sometimes in person, sometimes online. So we didn't have that issue going on. But there were certainly issues with, you know, the various things that my students were dealing with just in their lives and with their families, and people that they knew who were being affected by everything going on in our world. And so those different things, those feelings, those emotions, they often came to class with them. And that's not a bad thing. I was really happy that so many of my students felt comfortable enough to sort of share, you know, when they were going through things, share when they needed support, you know, ask for help when they needed it. And so, so that was a really positive part of it. But obviously there was, you know, my students and their families and extended families were dealing with a lot. And so that certainly was making its way into the classroom. On top of that, like I mentioned earlier, we did have larger class sizes in my school this year. And so, so that affected a lot of the things that, that I was doing, right? So it was an increased workload for me, you know, trying to get feedback to the students. Took more time this year than what it had in previous years, and trying to find a way to value my time and not be working all the time. That was something that was important to me, but it was, you know, sometimes that got away from me this year. And I did spend a lot of time working. And so what I was finding was by about February or so of this school year, I hit a point where it was just, I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. I have nothing else to give. And that's kind of the point that I was at. And it was, you know, trying to push through. I was overwhelmed with a lot of the things that I needed to make sure that I got done, all that was on my plate. So I was starting to feel frustrated because I wasn't able to, I didn't feel like I was doing everything as effectively as what I used to, right? And so I was really down on myself. I started having trouble sleeping. That was a really tough thing. I was experiencing migraines almost daily at a certain point. And then, then we finally get to, we're moving through, and it comes to a point where, panic attacks before classes and things like that, trying to get myself to a point where I can handle this. So there were certainly things that I was dealing with as well that were challenging moments for me. But I'm really glad that I do have a wonderful support system. And so I was able to, despite all of those things that were going on with my students, for myself, I was able to push through to the end of the school year, and we did end up wrapping it up successfully. So even though we did have those challenging moments, we were able to get through, and that's something that I'm really happy to say, because I with those challenging moments, some of the things that go through your head, at least that went through my head, was, maybe I shouldn't be a teacher anymore. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. What else should I be doing, type things. Those are some of the thoughts that I had been thinking this year. But now that, I've had a few weeks to sort of decompress after the end of school, made it through, I'm already starting to vision for next year and things like that. I think that, even though it was tough, even though we had those challenges, I think I'm on the other end of that now, where things are looking much more positive, right? And so that I am very, very happy to say that I'm seeing that now. So even though we have those challenging moments, we're able to get past them, right? And sort of move on, right? And do better, right? And so that kind of brings me to the next thing here. What did I do for myself? Okay, because when you're going through a difficult year, particularly like this school year, it's important as a teacher that you are taking care of yourself. Okay, if you don't take care of yourself, you're not able to properly take care of the students in your charge, right? And so your well-being is super important. And so some of the ways that I looked to make sure that I was taking care of myself was trying to have, the proper boundaries between home life and school life. And, when you work from home, when you work online like this, that can be really, really difficult, right? But I was really, really careful to make sure that I was reserving time away from school for myself. I wasn't working all the time, right? It was, as a workaholic, that's really difficult to do. But I tried to be very intentional about that. And so making sure that I wasn't blurring those boundaries between my home time and my school time. And an effective way that I actually found to do this was I actually installed an app on my phone. And the app that I installed, it's called Hours Tracker. There's a free version, and then there's, like a paid version and things like that. But what it allows you to do, like the free version is great. It allows you to set up, the different jobs that you might have. So for example, I'd have my, set up my school job, right? And then you can clock in and then clock out. You can add breaks and things like that. You can even add notes to the different entries that you have. And so what I did was I actually used this app on my phone to clock in and clock out of work to make sure I wasn't spending exorbitant amounts of hours working, that I did have time for myself and my family. And so that is one way I was able to facilitate it with the app called Hours Tracker. Okay, so tracking the hours that I'm spending on my job, making sure that I'm not, going crazy with all the hours that I'm spending. All right, and the final thing that I wanted to chat about today, and this is something that always excites me at the end of a school year when we're getting into a brand new one, and it's those plans for the next year. Right, and I've already been doing a whole bunch of brainstorming about a lot of different things that I want to incorporate and that I want to do and that I want to make better for next year. And so I'm going to share a couple of them with you today. I know for those of you that are familiar with my channel, I have a couple of videos on Flipgrid. Okay, Flipgrid is this awesome program that you can use with students to help increase engagement with them, where they're able to empowers them to use their voice. Right, so it's a program where they're able to record themselves, make their own little videos and things like that, and you can keep it within your own closed school community. So I do use it off and on throughout the school year. But as I've been doing some more research into things that we can do with Flipgrid and brainstorming ideas and things like that, I think I'm going to be using it in a few different ways next year. One of the things that I want to do is Flipgrid has this option for what's called a mixtape. So where you can take, a number of different videos and combine them together so that you have, like if they're on like one topic type of thing. And so I'm going to be using the mixtape feature to do things like create a staff introduction page for my students, so that the staff in so the teachers, staff in our school make a quick little video introducing themselves, who they are, what they teach, that type of stuff. And then I'll put it together as a mixed tape so that the students are able to get to know some of the teachers at our school before school even starts. And so that's something that I'm going to be incorporating for this coming year. The other thing that I thought would be really, really neat for the use of Flipgrid, I learned this from another teacher. They did this in their class, but I'm going to be using Flipgrid for birthday greetings throughout the school year. So when a student has a birthday, I'll set up a Flipgrid for all of the students to be able to record their own video birthday greeting, saying happy birthday to their classmate. And then that can be shared with the individual on their birthday. Right, so that's something that I plan to incorporate this coming year using Flipgrid. So the birthday greetings. Let's see, I also plan to use it as, I think I'm going to do more of a transitioning my newsletter to video format. I find that the information that goes out in emails and is written and things like that, sometimes it's difficult for people to make their way through and to read and things like that, but people tend to be a little bit more responsive to video. And so I'm considering using Flipgrid along with their mixtape feature as my newsletters for this coming year. So that's something else that I'm considering doing for this upcoming year. The other thing, and I'm really, really excited about this one, just last week, I came across a new program, which is currently in beta, and so I've been playing around with it. It's called Gameably. Right, and I talked earlier about some of those enjoyable moments with the the competitions that I would have in the junior high with the students, and tracking points and things like that. It can get a little cumbersome trying to track all of those points. So Gameably is a way that I think I'll be able to sort of make it more automated. Okay, so it's a program that you can use to sort of gamify your classroom a little bit more. You can set up things like challenges, badges, points associated with it, and things like that. And so I plan to incorporate that into a lot of the different things that I do in class. And I'm even going to sort of connect it with the the checkpoints I do in class. I have right now I have it set up so that when students get over 80%, I have autocrats sending them out an email congratulating them with a little badge that they get. That takes a bit of time to set up, though, especially if like you have different ones and things like that. So if I can set it all up in one place, like Gameably, which it looks like I will be able to do. It has like leaderboards and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really awesome. This is actually another thing that I have planned as a video tutorial coming up in a few weeks. So if you try to gamify things in your classroom, you need leaderboards and badges, like those types of things. This will be something that that you'll want to sort of check out. So in a couple of weeks, I will have a tutorial video coming out on all about Gameably, which is I'm really, really excited about. So yeah, this is. If you're interested, once again, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell. That will give you the opportunity to know when I go live or when I upload new videos and things like that. Okay. All right, so those are all the sort of my reflections on this school year. I know that's been a lot. I always find, oh man, it's going to be a quick 10-15 minute video, and I always end up talking a lot. But hopefully, as I've reflected on some of the things that have worked for me, that were challenges for me, or even, what I plan to do and things like that for this upcoming school year, hopefully that helped you in your own thinking process and evaluating process. So just taking a look here in chat. I know we've had a few more people joining. Hello there, those of you that have placed some comments in the chat. I appreciate that. I see, Vincent, you're talking about your, looks like you're going to be tackling grade 7 this coming year, hey? Let's see. I think that, when it comes to, tackling new things, it's not unusual to be scared or apprehensive and things like that. But having that confidence in what you bring to the table is important, right? So yeah, don't worry about it. Things will go well for you for sure, I think. All right. So I see you have a question here. Can you give you tips for huge tests? Okay. Now my question would be, and so Vincent, I don't know if you can sort of clarify there, but would this be from, so for example, from a teacher perspective or from a student perspective? So how do students handle big tests, or how do teachers manage those tests, and what processes do we have for that? If you could clarify, that would be awesome, because the different perspectives obviously are quite different there, right? So when it comes to obviously I can talk from a teacher's perspective here. From when it comes to those tests, one of the things that I do, I use Google Forms for all of my tests and quizzes and things like that. But what I try and do is I try not to make them the super high stakes type of thing, right? Absolutely, it's important to know what students have learned, okay? But what I try and do is, leading up to these tests, is there's lots of practice and opportunities to show knowledge and demonstrate knowledge and things like that. And so we do a lot of practice leading up to that. With those large tests, because I am online, I work with the parents as partners in trying to make sure that students are making good choices when it comes to integrity and not cheating and things like that. And so if that's something that that you guys are interested in, absolutely, I can do another tutorial video that walks you through sort of the process that I take with those tests and how I use Google Forms to do that. I would be happy to do that as a future video there for sure. All right, I see we still have a few people here. Any other questions at all? And I think we're gonna sort of wrap things up here, but if there are some questions, I'd be happy to answer that. So if you have a question, put it into chat, and I'd be happy to take a look at that. As we're looking towards that, let me just, I'm gonna pop this up here, just another reminder. Don't forget to subscribe and click on that notification bell so that next time we are live, next time I do upload a video, you get the information on that, okay? All right, I'm taking a look here. I don't see any other questions coming through here. So I think we're going to wrap up now. I want to thank you so much, guys, for joining me on my live stream today and sort of listening to me as I process and talk through the different things that that I've experienced this year and what I plan for next year. And I really do hope that I will see you on the next live stream, which I plan to do one a month. So next month I'll do another one, but in the meantime, there will be a few more tutorial videos uploaded to the channel, so you can look forward to that. All right, thanks guys, and we will see you again soon.